morning, welcome back to another edition of the Fourth and Forever podcast, where this week we are continuing on with our series on draft needs for each NFL team. And today we're going to be hitting up the NFC, no, not the NFC, we're going to go for the AFC South. We've already done the NFC South. So we're going to go to check out what we think needs to happen for the Houston Texans, the Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Tennessee Titans. Obviously a very volatile division itself. It seems to blow up pretty much every year. Some surprises here and there. So I wonder what we're going to have in store in Houston. To kick us off, we have the 11-5 Texans from last season. They're picking the first round is the 23rd overall. And where do we see them going, Darren?
It's a double take when you say the 11-5 Texans.
Yeah. Somehow they just kept winning games. Like in spite of all their flaws, they just kept rolling on. And that was after a very, very poor start. How many was it they won in a row? They won something like seven or eight in a row?
Yeah, coming back to what we said in a couple of other podcasts, is when you get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, you end up with a later pick in the first round. And I kind of feel like the Texans team is a team that needs some help, a bit of some new ideas and some new personnel. Yeah, 23rd overall. You know, they've kind of caught themselves, by playing so well last year, being successful last year, they've kind of put themselves in a position that says, yeah, we're going to have to probably go for the best O-lineman available.
Oh, you reckon they need an offensive lineman?
Yeah.
Well, they have 7 picks in the draft, so I reckon that should be, how many positions are there on the line? At least 5 offensive linemen, because they were god-awful last year. Trying to protect Deshaun Watson, quarterback. He was just one of those quarterbacks who was always running for his life with just a woeful offensive line that needs to get better.
In that playoff game, just stand there with the incense out and the crucifixes and just pretty much digging Deshaun a grave, eh? Just lucky he survived that game.
Very much so.
Didn't really get much chance to show anything in his first playoff game. And there was a really interesting stat about how Deshaun Watson had never lost a game by more than 7 points through his whole career. So we're talking high school, college, and then that playoff game, he was all hyped up and he just had to go for a run. Didn't really get a chance to throw the ball. And they were bounced. They were bounced really easily as well. And they're going to continue to do that unless they can make a couple of changes, because that division's getting harder and they don't have a lot. On the offensive side, they need to help him. And I think offensive line is probably, later in the draft with the players that are moving up, I think that's probably going to be the deepest place they can help him at 23.
Yeah, so there is a lot of depth at the offensive line position. We reckon around about that time we might have, potentially Andre Dillard might be there. Otherwise you might have Cody Ford, Greg Little. Dalton Risner still working his way up draft rankings. Very good pass blocker and exceptional run blocker also, I suppose you could say. He's rising up an awful lot of draft boards. Anyone who comes in would surely manage to upgrade this offensive line. Julian Davenport at left tackle and just a series of other turnstiles there. They did bring in Matt Khalil from Carolina, but that's... I would think he could still help upgrade there, despite the fact that he's not been what he could have been at Carolina. So I've got a feeling he might go there and resurrect his career. He certainly is going to help them somewhere, surely.
It's a great opportunity to resurrect your career. In the end, the offense just needs to be functional. The defense has been so strong that they just have to stay on the field when they're on the field, give the defense a break and put up 20 odd points a game. They've not been able to do it. They can do it to a level, and to be fair, the AFC South that they're in is weak. It's been weak for a while, and next year you're going to have Foles, Luck, whoever else plays in that division.
Yeah, well, who's it going to be at Tennessee, of course? But we'll get onto that a little bit later, because obviously there has been some comings and goings. Other areas which they could do with improving in, the person which keeps coming up on making the leap things every year is Lamar Miller. Never seems to get there. He was on the around the NFL podcast list of players who need to worry, because he's just not proved himself in quite some time. He's got Deontay Foreman just behind him, but there is definitely scope that with their second round pick that they could go somewhere running back. Like, I can't imagine that they would go for that too much right off the bat. I to be honest, I could literally see them taking 2 offensive linemen with their first 2 or 3 picks.
Yeah, they've got to do something to support their franchise player. They've got 2 franchise players on the offense, and if they connect, then they win games. In DeAndre Hopkins and Deshaun Watson. So if they can give Deshaun Watson, even half a second more to throw a ball, Hopkins going to catch it, and they will have Will Fuller next year.
Yes,
I can't see him going anywhere else. I just think it's going to be so deep at 23 in terms of that position. Cody Ford, Andre Dillard, and Garrett Bradbury. There's players there that can come straight in and make an instant impact.
There is a lot of people saying that they could do with a tight end as well. For some reason, not everyone's sold on the combination of Darren Fells and Ryan Griffin. So there is every potential that they might go for one of the tight ends there. Again, some people calling for them to go for that with their first round pick. I just do not see that as being an option. But there just has to be offensive line for them. Much like the Minnesota Vikings, they have one glaring need that they need to address, and there should be the depth there. Unless all of the good tackles are picked in front of them, and there's a chance that could happen, because offensive lineman is a very coveted position these days. It's not glamorous, but it's very important. There's every chance that a lot of these guys could be gone.
In the way that the Texans play, when you look at tight end, are you looking more towards a blocking tight end that can help the offensive line? Are you looking more to like a straight line tight end like Wilson out of UCLA? Or if Noah Fant's there, is he just the one you take if you're going for a tight end?
Well, he would definitely be the athletic pass-catching type, I would say. I would think that would just depend on what happens, how far he falls. But I can't see him falling deep enough into round 2 for them to be able to pick them up with the 54th or 55th pick.
I think Wilson would be a good pick there if he's available. But it's like you say, it's about need. And if there's a couple of good cornerbacks still around, then gotta take someone that is more of a desperate need. You can trade for a tight end.
Yeah.
You can pick one up,
You can. And tight ends aren't always early round players. You can pick one up a little bit further back who can still do some damage. Moving on from the Houston Texans, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Certainly a surprise package from last year. Ended up at 10-6. And in the first round, they have the 26th overall pick. Obviously, Andrew Luck came back and is really looking like his old self, if not better. Because he's
never in doubt. Stuart.
Yes.
Never in doubt.
They are a team who do not need offensive line help on the face of it, because they looked very, very good last season. We see them needing to give Luck some wide receiver help. Also, they could do with some help on the defensive side of the ball. They did just pick up Justin Houston as an edge rusher. How effective he's going to be after some injuries and maybe slowing down remains to be seen, but I do still really like that pick. So with the 26th pick, and then they also have the 34th from the Jets in round 2. So they've got a couple pretty close together, which means that they could get some pretty good value picks there.
Yeah. They kind of have a free shot at this first round because of how well they did last year. They pick up Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard, and if you say that 1 and 2 is a hit and miss, they've already won this draft by having 2 hits early in last year's draft.
Yes.
So they're just, all they need to do is just keep building. I kind of like someone like Mac Wilson from Alabama late in the first round. If they've got Leonard, then they can put Wilson there as well. He's another winner, another player from a big college that that has won games and played in a pro style defense. And there's lots of ways they can go. What do they need? More attacking threats, wide receivers, things like that?
Well, in terms of wide receivers, obviously they've got T.Y. Hilton. Eugene! It's actually his real name. And they just picked up Devin Funchess, who some people seem to be really high on.
I thought he was a sneaky good signing.
You think so?
We said that in the last podcast.
Yeah. 1 year, 12 million, was it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I mean, the thing with the Colts
it's
is
low risk.
They have the money, and the NZPA want the money.
The NZPA.
NZPA? Sorry,
they're going into New Zealand Player Association territory here.
The NFLPA has been expecting more money to be spent on players, so this idea that they can spend a bit more money to get a few players in and kind of shore up that team. Funchess was he's a solid solid acquisition at that point.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
But if there's such a deep wide receiver class that if there's someone there that they think is going to make an instant difference, then...
Well, if we were going to go down the wide receiver route at either 26 or 34, where could we see them going? Do you see them as potentially Andy Isabella territory?
Oh, I'd love that combination between him and Luck.
I think that would be... That's a combination that I could maybe get a little bit excited about.
Yeah. Also, N'Keal Harry could be a good choice there. A bit more physical, get in about the defenders, especially when you've got a quarterback as accurate as Andrew Luck.
Yep, someone like JJ Arcega-Whiteside, he's getting a lot of love on Pro Football Focus.
Stanford boy.
Yeah, like he seems like he would be an interesting combination to go with Luck. Certainly wouldn't surprise me if they have been in some sort of conversation together. If they weren't going to go there, we would see them maybe going for cornerback or defensive tackle. But of course, as we have mentioned before, the cornerback class is not particularly deep this year outside the big three. If you're looking at the defensive line side of things as well, what would we maybe think they could go for there?
Jerry Tillery can come in. He's a Notre Dame boy like Quentin Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a bit of consistency there.
Mm-hmm. The more I read about Jerry Tillery, the more I like him.
Yeah.
He's about 6'7", 300 pounds, a wrecking machine. Like he's projected anywhere from top 10 to middle of the second round.
It's going to be dependent on how it falls
in
the end. Just who takes who. People are going to reach for players. That's going to completely change the outlook of the draft.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep listening. Still means something.
Yeah, please do. Do you have a hunch? Do you think that like wide receiver help is kind of a nailed on thing here, or interior line? If Tillery is there, do you take him?
Yes.
Question for you: if Dexter Lawrence is still there, would you take him over Jerry Tillery?
He's much bigger.
He's a big guy, but Jerry Tillery is more the taller sort. So like he's a little more rangy, but he's still 295 pounds. He's no 340 pounds Dexter Lawrence, but he's still big. I would never tell him to his face that he's small.
I guess it depends on the scheme. The difference between the scheme at the Colts and the scheme at Clemson.
Mm-hmm. You stick a big guy in the middle, you jam him up there, you know.
But when you already got Leonard. I to myself, I'd be a bit more rangy, a bit more athletic, and a bit smaller in that position. I'd be more like I would go Tillery, but the Colts are kind of an old school organisation that will probably appreciate having someone that's 350 pounds.
I still think they should go after Ndamukong Suh, but that's my personal
He's not
thoughts
signed yet, no.
No, he's still floating around. Anyway, we should probably move on, and we'll hit up the Jacksonville Jaguars this time. So Jacksonville, everyone knows that they sucked last season for the most part. Obviously, it was entirely down to Blake Bortles and no one else. So they found themselves with a 5-11 record, and they come in with the 7th overall pick. Now, the needs that they have, I would say that offensive line would be quite a big one that they would need to work on there. They could do with an edge rusher, but yeah, you could have someone else on the linebacker side of things there.
It's Metcalf. Talk all around it. I think the defense would throw a fit if they didn't take Metcalf.
Yeah.
The defense don't need any help. They feel completely fine. If they don't start getting some offensive weapons, I think they're going to have a full-scale mutiny on their hands.
Yeah, the DK Metcalf thing here is it's really staring them in the face.
It's a massive reach.
Yes.
It's the kind of player they need that'll sell shirts and just make the defense a bit happier. He's also a Southern boy.
Yeah, if he works out very well, then you're going to have quite a scary wide receiver core, really. Like I do quite rate D.D. Westbrook. Yeah. Marquise Lee's rapid. Yes. Chris Conley there as well. Keelan Cole was doing some damage last season as well. He has all this potential. He just doesn't change direction quickly. But if you use him right,
need to.
Yeah, just lob it over the top and see where he ends up. providing Nick Foles can drop that deep ball, and we have seen him do it.
Accurate enough to get something going.
Mm.
Like they've spent a lot of money on Foles, but the cap goes up by 15% a year or whatever, so the money needs to be spent anyway. But Bortles was the lowest, top 3 in fumbles recovered, and interceptions in like his time at Jacksonville. Foles is not going to be that bad. Like he just isn't going to be. It'd be very unlikely that he'd be that bad. So anything,
and that is
they've already upgraded at least a couple
of ranks,
the
yeah.
QBR ratings.
Well, I remember during one of our earlier podcasts, I gave you the over/under on Nick Foles' success, and it was not very good, but it's still going to be better than Blake Bortles, which is not hard. Like, I'm pretty sure you could just sit down and take a sack every play and still play better than Bortles.
I'm intrigued about their contract situation, like where Calais Campbell and some of these guys on defense sitting in terms of their contracts. When can they opt out? When does their money cease to be paid? Like, they need to use this defense while they have it, but at the same time, if they don't do well with Foles this year, they might have the opportunity to draft one of like 5 first-round rated quarterbacks next year. So it kind of is a 3 years for them to, because if they get a top 10 pick next year, they have it'll be 3 or 4 quarterbacks they can go with.
You're suggesting organic tanking?
No, I'm saying that they have to try and win now, but if they don't, at least they can kind of reset next year quite easily. But I think you have to give Foles as many weapons as possible. You have to at least
give him a chance.
Give it a chance.
They could also do with the tight end.
That's 7.
No, because you know my thoughts on early like drafting of tight ends.
The Broncos will be so sad if the tight end gets taken away from 3 picks earlier.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if they decided to go for someone like T.J. Hawkinson out of Iowa, or Noah Fant. People might even think that he's a more appropriate tight end for this sort of system. But I do think that the wide receiver DK Metcalf is the one that they're going to go for.
Yeah, the thing that intrigues me about the NFL over like the NBA, for example, is that being aggressive with trades just isn't really an NFL thing. Because if it was me and I was the GM of this team, I would be going, well, I'm going to be really aggressive and try and get Burton from the Bears. I would like and actually go and pick up a tight end that Foles is familiar with. And then I don't need to spend my first round pick on a tight end. I just waste a couple of picks next year and
what
actually
do you got to give
get
up to
a player I know will work.
There's something to be said for that, but it depends on how much you have to give up. And stockpiling picks is something which people see a lot of value in because they feel that you have a greater chance to hit on something, as well as reduce your the number you have against the cap. That's just that, really, I suppose. So yeah, they've got a couple of options. They certainly have some glaring needs. They feel as if they might have solved something at quarterback. I'm still not entirely convinced by Nick Foles. It really depends on which Foles are you going to get. Are you going to get the little dink and dunk guy, or are you going to get the guy who's lobbing up for nearly 600 yards in the Super Bowl?
What do you think the over-under on Jalen Ramsey packing a fit's going to be next year?
You can rank that. Like I would have thought that just would not be out there. No one would be doing that.
3 quarters. Especially if the first game is against like the Colts or something and away and they're not doing very well.
Yeah. I wonder.
There'll be a tweet from the sideline.
He's going to have to go back and reassess his list where he told everyone which quarterbacks were good and which ones sucked. He loved Blake Bortles. So I don't think that...
It's the best bit of PR he's done since he's been there.
A very interesting stance that Jalen Ramsey took. So moving on from them, we're going to finish up the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. And we reckon that with them picking at the 19th overall pick after a 9-7 record. They finished 9-7?
They lost to the Colts at the end, so they could have had a 10-6 record.
Well, they've upgraded a couple of positions already. They've brought in Adam Humphries from Tampa Bay, who we really like. Very interesting, like pretty much pure slot receiver, can really do some damage. And that's the sort of guy that someone like Marcus Mariota would be screaming out for But of course, it's not just Marcus Mariota there anymore. You have Ryan Tannehill nipping on his heels, just letting him know that this is a quarterback competition. And of course, they still have Corey Davis there, wide receiver. We still see room to improve from then back because Humphreys, like we say, is a slot guy. You've got Corey Davis and you've got Tajay Sharp, who's never really quite fulfilled his initial promise. So there's opportunities to be had there. But also on the offensive line, they could really do with improving. And certainly could do with another edge rusher. Although in saying that, they have just brought in the 175-year-old Cameron Wake on a 3-year contract. Hey, as long as he's producing.
I'm all about that. Cameron Wake's awesome.
Love him. Excellent player, excellent story. And as long as he's getting close to double-digit sacks every year, keep paying him. Keep paying him to come back.
The one thing that frustrates me about Tennessee is you draft Mariota. And it's very similar to the Panthers with Cam. Is that you protect them. You try and make them more of a pocket player and kind of slow the game down. And when you've been a player that's used to moving a certain way and playing in certain kind of standards, and this happens in all sports, if you're asked to adjust that, that's when these injuries happen. Part of me thinks, can they draft like some witch or something to give him a bit of good luck in the first round just to keep Mariota on the field, and actually, because a lot of his injuries have come from offensive linemen falling on him, tight ends running into, they haven't been playing a system that gets him out in the open. He doesn't actually get to run. And
because people are scared of letting quarterbacks run because they think that's how they get injured.
But he's getting injured in the pocket.
Marcus Mariota is getting injured in the
his
huddle.
House.
Yeah, pretty much. Like he's just opening his eyes in the morning and the piano is falling through his ceiling. Is he cursed?
It's not quite Steve Lovell falling through his coffee table the morning of a Scottish Cup semi-final. But it's definitely... Yeah, there's definitely a bit of bad luck in there. And I think if you're asking someone to adjust their throwing motion, their pocket presence, the way they play, these hamstring tears that he's had, these are things that happen when he's not throwing on the run like he's had been his whole career. They wouldn't have LaFleur now.
Yep.
He's gone, so maybe this new system will maybe be a bit more expansive. Look, if you're going to bring in Tannehill and you're going to put it on Mariota and say to him, you've only got a couple more years of this, mate, at least let him play to his strengths then. Because he's been paid. He's got, he got money. Just, if he gets injured, you've got Tannehill. So actually just let him...
Just let him loose and say, we're going to actually use the talents you have at your disposal.
Yeah, we'll play a 15-second clock and we'll actually speed the game up a bit and see what you can do. Because playing to the 45 or the 40 every play isn't Mariota's... I don't know why you would bring him in from a Chip Kelly offense and think that you can slow it completely down and that's
hurry up. Just run, yeah, that's going to bring
stop.
back that hurry up offense, which proved so well for him at Oregon. Obviously,
it's not like he doesn't have running backs to help him.
No, not at all. With Derrick Henry just dominating for parts of last season, you see that the potential is there. Dion Lewis being really handy out the backfield, a good thunder and lightning combination, like the old Lendale White and Chris Johnson days there. They did also take in Roger Saffold to shore up the left guard position. Big boy, big signing. But they still look a little bit awkward on that interior, particularly to the right. I could still see with them upgrading at that stage. Of course, they do still have likes of Delaney Walker out there, but they could, like we say, we could do with another edge rusher other than Cameron Wake. So yeah,
Delaney Walker is coming back.
Yes, I believe so.
So he's signed another. He's getting older. But...
So. He's getting there, but don't tell him that. He wants to be playing forever. He's the best in the world. So yeah, with the 19th pick, where do we see him going?
I'd be looking at, for me, like an athletic. They've got a few players, but an athletic offensive lineman would be pretty solid. If they can get some help at wide receiver.
Yes.
I kind of look at, they might be the kind of team that will take a chance on, Montez Sweat if he drops.
Okay, yeah.
Or Gary if he drops as well. Otherwise, it's going to be offensive line. If there's not any clear solid player at edge than wide receiver or offensive line. Wide receiver they got much more chance of hitting on, I think, because how deep that is. But a lot of people are saying that it's going to be deep from now on because of the systems college teams are playing. Wide receiver is just going to be deep regardless, and you may as well just pick up 3 of them in training camp and see if one of them, just get some undrafted boys and see if you can make a team rather than spending high picks on them.
Yeah, I could also see them potentially going for a linebacker, to be honest, because aside from Wesley Woodyard, who they got from Denver the other season, they don't really seem to have too much else there. But nothing much that I would rate anyway.
Devin Bush would be good if he was still there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that would be a reach at all.
I think Mac Wilson at 19 would be a reach, but at 51 he could be pretty solid. So yeah, there's a few ways they can go. They're one of those teams.
They actually look quite solid on paper. So I guess we'll see.
They just need to add more talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll have to do it for the AFC South. The clock is really ticking down to the draft now, so please join us next time for our final one on the AFC East, or go back and listen to all of our other content. I particularly liked our one that we did on the AFC North. I thought that one was real good. Lots of swearing and stuff in it, but it was bleeped out if it was anything bad, anything other than shit. Sorry.
It was the shit.
It was the shit. Anyway, thank you and goodbye.